my warmest friends. It was so good of you to come all this way. You must be dying to begin. It won't be long now. So rest. Rest in peace. I'll be coming for you soon. Oh, very soon. Your time has nearly come. Just a little farther now. Oh, roughly 6 feet or so. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I frighten you? Perhaps that was in bad spirit. Try to stay lively. Your wait is at an end. Make yourself comfortable and take one last look behind you. If knowing what's behind you will make you feel any better. As for me, I like to be surprised. Time to cross over now. So step inside my library and welcome to Ghost Stories for Grownups. Good evening, dark travelers, and welcome to our other library, where you'll find a collection curated for thrills and chills. Let's begin with news from our Dead Files, brought to you by the sometimes dusty, but never musty, other library archivist, Mabel.
Hi, I'm Mabel, and welcome to tonight's News from the Dead Files, coming at ya, live? In tonight's Dead Files, we'll be haunting the courtroom with some paranormal law. Dun dun! Oh great, how many forms am I gonna have to fill out for this? Even though legal entities have yet to prove or disprove the existence of ghosts, which I think is just rude, cases involving spirited testimony continue to haunt the halls of justice. One of the more well-known incidents being the testimony of the Greenbrier ghost, also known as the late Mrs. Zona Shue. After Zona's death in 1897, originally ruled an accident from falling down the stairs, Zona's mother testified in court that the ghost of her daughter came to her, claiming the husband had attacked her in a fit of rage over a dinner snafu and broke her neck. And to prove this, the ghost of Zona turned her head completely around until it was facing backwards. Even though this testimony may not have been a factor in the husband's subsequent murder conviction, it was partially responsible for exhuming Zona's body for a proper autopsy. A historical marker in West Virginia at the cemetery where Zona is buried describes the account as the only known case in which testimony from a ghost helped convict a murderer. In addition to testimony from the grave, loads of last wills and testaments have been crafted, uncovered, or contested thanks to spiritual intervention. What can we say? We like to get the job done. One such case involved the final wishes of Elizabeth Handley in 1895, where an unhappy heir claimed that Elizabeth had been unduly influenced by her dead husband when she contacted him via planchette for advice when drafting her will. The court ruled that law is of the earth, but courts have not assumed to deny to spirits of the departed the privilege of holding communion with those of their friends who are still in the flesh. Mrs. Hamley's will was sustained. And don't think cases of these types only happen to those crazy Victorians. In recent years, a variety of cases involving the dead giving bad advice through spirit mediums has been documented, as well as numerous accounts of broken lease agreements due to undisclosed hauntings. Quit giving us a bad name, guys! Really! One such highly publicized case involved historic Church Street Station in Orlando, Florida. It's always Florida. When in 2005, restaurant owners refused to occupy a building because after signing the lease agreement, they heard the building was haunted. Construction workers tearing out the floor of the building during renovations reported seeing an ethereal bartender serving spirits. Ha 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 ha. The landlord offered to exorcise the building, but the tenant said no thanks, stiffing the owner out of millions in unpaid rent and fees. And in 1991, a court decision known as the Ghostbuster ruling would set a precedent for disclosing hauntings that might affect a property's value. The house in question was owned by Mrs. Helen Ackley, who failed to disclose to potential buyers that she believed the house was haunted. When the buyers found out, they wanted their deposit back, so they could look for something less ghostly. Rude. Helen declined to let them out of the contract, and the buyers sued. Even though, years earlier, Helen had given interviews to several publications, including Reader's Digest, describing 3 distinct ghosts in the home. She denied their existence in court. Initially, the New York Supreme Court agreed with Mrs. Ackley and suggested that the buyer is responsible for doing their research. However, an appellate court overturned this decision, stating that, having previously reported the presence of ghosts, Mrs. Ackley couldn't deny their existence and, as a matter of law, the house is haunted. In 2020, figures, the house came up for sale again, and the realtor stated that she was not aware of any subsequent owners seeing ghosts, which was no surprise to Helen Ackley. Carola Vinak of the Toronto Star writes that, years after she'd sold the house to someone else, Ackley reconnected with the specters through a paranormal researcher and channeler. The 2 ghosts, who called themselves Sir George and Margaret, complained life wasn't much fun since the Ackleys left, so they were moving on. Thanks for tuning into the Dead Files, folks. I'll see you next time. Please, try not to get us all sued. Oh, I'm sorry. That was horrible.
Thank you, Mabel. And now, for tonight's creature feature. Our warm guest, Lisa Yoder, will be reading short story 9/10 of the Law by Eric James Stone from the horror anthology Bloodlight 3 Aftertaste, edited by Kevin J. Anderson and published by Pocket Books.
Nine-Tenths of the Law by Eric James Stone. The law offices of Thacker, Ford, and Harward were on the upper floors of a downtown high-rise that had mostly escaped the ravages of the zombie troubles. I walked past the attractive living receptionist and made my way to a corner office, which I figured would hold one of the better lawyers. None of the lawyers themselves had escaped infection, of course, because the zombies had deliberately targeted lawyers, judges, and politicians during the initial stages of the plague. But that only made them better lawyers. Contrary to movie stereotype, the typical zombie did not shamble around, arms outstretched, searching for brains to eat, because most zombies had all the brains they needed. The average zombie IQ was 182. Instead of brains, they ate hearts. But nobody's perfect. The name on the corner office door was Travis Gordon. I walked through the door and saw a gray-haired man sitting at a desk, his skin the usual waxy complexion of a zombie. After a few minutes, Gordon noticed me and looked up. "I didn't hear you come in." His voice was calm. "Considering my door is shut and I can't smell you or hear your heartbeat, you are either a hallucination, a projection, or a ghost." I walked to one of the chairs in front of his desk and sat. Pretty impressive. I am, in fact, a ghost. "Well, Mr. Ghost, or whatever your name is, the mere fact that you are dead does not excuse you from the rules of civil society. You can't just drop in unannounced. Feel free to make an appointment, like anybody else." "Yeah," I said, "about that. You have a living receptionist answering your phone. Very discriminatory of you, by the way. Manifesting to you is pretty easy, you being dead and all. My name's Kyle, by the way, Kyle Petrides. But even if I managed a phone call, she'd probably just hear white noise on the line, which her mind would then interpret as someone whispering words like, 'You're all going to die. Get out. Paul is dead,' etc., etc. So I decided to do a walk-in. Plus, it's kind of an emergency." What kind of emergency?" "Someone's about to haunt my house." Gordon frowned. "Someone other than you mean?" I waved my hand dismissively. "I don't haunt my own house. But, from my perspective, having a bunch of living people hanging around, appearing at odd hours, making strange noises and such, that's pretty much a haunting. I want to get an injunction to keep these people out of my house. You own it?" "I did 21 years ago before I died, but I've been there ever since, and possession's 9/10 of the law, right?" There's no precedent for ghosts exercising property rights." 18 months ago, there were no legal precedents for zombie rights either, but now, conditions are more favorable for ghosts to come out of the closet, so to speak. It's really a matter of civil rights. Gordon pressed a button on his phone. "Maxine, reschedule my 11 o'clock and hold my calls." We went to court the next day. The living people who had bought my house had scrounged up an actual living human lawyer from somewhere. Most people had learned to live with the zombie takeover and even be happy with it. The government ran a lot more efficiently now. But there were still foolish prejudices. And picking this living lawyer was definitely foolish, since Gordon could talk rings around the guy. "But, Your Honor," the lawyer whined, "my clients have paid good money to purchase the house from the legal owner. This ghost shouldn't be allowed to possess my client's property." "The owner of record is not necessarily the legal owner, Your Honor," Gordon said smoothly. "Mr. Petrides has been in continuous possession of the property for the past 21 years, with a claim adverse to that of the owner of record. Opposing counsel's clients were on notice of Mr. Petrides' possession, since they were aware that the owner of record was willing to sell the house for below market value due to its being haunted. It is not Mr. Petrides' fault that they did not believe in ghosts." The judge nodded. "I've heard enough. Current law has clearly established that mere death of the physical body does not divest someone's rights. While the law was written with zombies in mind, on its on its face, there is still no reason it cannot apply to ghosts as well. There being no legal bar to possession by a ghost, I rule that the property in question belongs to Mr. Petrides." 2 weeks later, the Supreme Court unanimously affirmed the ruling. Justice moved a lot more swiftly now that the zombies controlled the entire process. I met Gordon in his office for a celebratory drink, although he didn't offer me anything, of course. Not having a body had a lot of disadvantages. "I imagine that, after this decision, a lot more of your kind will start coming into the open," Gordon said, then took a sip from his brandy. "And if ghosts start asserting their rights to own homes, it's going to cause increased demand for homes, which means increased property values, more construction jobs, and so on. Economically, it makes a lot of sense. I'm sure that's why your case got expedited." "This was never really about property for me," I said. "It was about legal recognition of ghosts as beings with rights." "Of course," Gordon said. "We zombies understand. Why do you think we went after the lawyers, politicians, and judges first?" I nodded. "Interesting thing about these zombie rights laws you passed. They allow the body to retain civil rights after death, even if the personality controlling the body is completely different. Very convenient." "Well, of course, since the virus wiped the old personalities. No, I mean convenient for us ghosts." I walked toward him, and as I got too close, he backed away until he reached a wall. "Your body keeps control of your assets no matter who controls your body. Combined with the recent Supreme Court decision that ghosts have a right to possession, it leads to some interesting possibilities. Taking over a human with a soul is tremendously difficult. But all you zombies in positions of wealth and power, well, you've done the hard part already." I stepped into his body and possessed it, then lifted the glass to my lips and actually tasted something for the first time in decades. "Like they say, possession is 9/10 of the law," I said, just in case he could still hear me from inside what was now my head. "I think I'll like being a lawyer."
Oh, Lisa dear, what an uplifting story about self-reflection and personal growth. Our own library ghoul was so moved, he penned this original work.
Lots of potential to never leave. Recently sterilized. Not enough Lysol in the world. Recently fumigated. Some things Febreze can't fix. Strong boiler burns all kinds of organic matter. Yes, I can see where you might think that was a portal. It's just a quick way to the bathroom. No, I did not hear kids asking you to play and stay forever. Must have been the wind. Oh, that. I said, get out there and check out those spectacular views of the cemetery gardens. Freshly topsoiled very recently. I see you don't know about the calming liquid flow walls. All the rage down under. Well, it's not haunted.
Thank you, Ghoul. If your other library's career ever gives up the ghost, I believe you might have a dark future in unreal estate. However, Ghoul dear, nobody wants to buy your timeshare. Alas, dark travelers, it's time for you to dearly depart. But only until next time. Until then, be nice to spiders. Have tea with the ghost in your attic. And don't forget to feed the monster under your bed. Good night.